What's up, everybody? My name is Peter Agoston. You are on the House List. Thank you for coming back and listening. I appreciate it. This is a very modest little project that I'm doing, totally DIY on my own, with the help of generous assistance in editing and engineering with my old friend CJ Stewart. We're doing the first few shows together all at once, because I live in New York, he lives in California, and honestly, I don't know how to edit properly. I don't have the time or head space. I'm doing all the interviews and recording all the interviews. I do them all face to face with a little handheld recorder, and that's been working out pretty great. And all of these have been recorded in a completely different location, different setting, time of day. It's just putting it all together with people that I have worked with in the past, old friends, and so far just folks in the music industry. And for the most part, I guess it should be known, the origin of the title, The House List, really comes from the guest list at a venue, at a music venue, or a club, and if you are, you have a friend playing, or you have a friend that works in the box office, or that's a booking agent, or a talent buyer, or the GM of the club, or as a bartender, and you want to go see a show or see your friend's show, or you're a journalist or some shit like that, and you need to see a band. Oftentimes you'll be put on a guest list if it's necessary, and in most cases it would be considered the house list, and that's kind of the origin. And I put my fair share of people on various house lists over the years, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that may or may not be listening that can attest to that. So I wanted to give a little bit of backstory into that name that I chose to make this with. So yeah, here we are. On this episode, we're going to go back to my very first interview that was done specifically for this project, and that was with my man, Coati Mundi, in Los Angeles. This was the very first one I was able to do. I flew out to LA a little while ago with the hopes of doing a bunch of them, and of course, for one reason or another, stuff falls through or timing doesn't work out, and I was able to do two on that trip, Coati Mundi and Matt Deal. Coati is an incredible artist and actor, musician and composer who lives in Southern California. He spends part of his time in LA and part of his time in Temecula, but he is a native New Yorker. He was born in Manhattan, and we talk about his childhood and his seminal work with Dr. Buzzard's Savannah band and Kid Creole and the Coconuts, as well as, and what is most important to me, is his solo work, which is, I think, completely incredible and unique and worth seeking out. And you might have to do a little digging to find his stuff. He's only done 2 solo albums, and we talk a little bit about that. We talk about his acting. He's been in a bunch of Spike Lee movies, and he made his debut on Miami Vice. And it was a great conversation. I will apologize if the atmospheric sound may be distracting to some. I'd like to think that it adds a lot to the story itself, because we recorded it all in McDonald's on the same microphone that I'm talking into right now. We sat in McDonald's on Sunset Blvd and in a corner, and there's people in and out, and we had this conversation, and I thought it was incredible, and I'm really happy to finally be getting it out there. And Coati, if you're listening, I hope you like it, And if you're a fan of his music, I think you're really going to love this. If you never heard of him before, I think by the end of it, you'll really be interested in learning more about him and his career. So without any more delay, and I appreciate your time very much, let's check out my conversation with Coati Mundi here on The House Lists. Thank you. We can maybe even talk about really how you got to LA in the first place, though, right? Because I mean, you are a native New Yorker.
Correct.
So, but was it that you got here from touring? Was it playing when you were doing music, playing?
Are we interviewing?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the deal. I lived out in LA in the 70s. When I was with Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band, we're all from Spanish Harlem and the Bronx.
Right.
You remember the group?
Of course, absolutely, yeah.
So once we got our record deal,
Right.
and then once the record was released and it became big time, we made a ton of money. So we decided to do our follow-up record in Los Angeles. We had come out to LA to do TV shows. Our first TV show we did was Tony Orlando and Dawn.
Right.
Then we did Dinah Shore Show and a bunch of TV shows. Then we started experiencing LA, and we kind of, those moments we dug in. Right. We enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, everything. So we were mesmerized by the big scoring stages for film at Burbank Universal Studios.
Like sound stages. Right.
So we wanted to do our second album at the sound stage. And part of the allure of doing it is, like, I would see all these films being scored, Jaws, incredible big time films, because we had access to it because we were doing our album there. So we did it.
What was the lot? Do you remember? Was it Warner Brothers?
Burbank Warner Brothers.
All right.
Warner Brothers lot. You had the big sound stage, and you had the big symphonic orchestras and the score and everything like that. So that's what we wanted to do, was to do a record there. And when we did our orchestrations, we got some of the big name Hollywood music arrangers for those films and everything to work on our records.
How did that even fall into place? Was it just that you had met them at those TV appearances?
We went after them. We just told management, find these guys.
Amazing.
And we want to work with them.
Right.
And so, because our first album sold so much, made millions of dollars, we were in position to talk to these people and hire them to do stuff. So we had some of the top orchestrators in the business. And we would do things live. So the orchestras, soundstage was so big, and strings and horns all done at the same time for our record and everything like that. So in order to do the second album, we had to live out here.
Right.
Especially in those days, it just takes forever to do a record. Right. And once you've had any kind of success, especially when you're young in your 20s, you tend to exaggerate your importance. We said, we're going to do an album here in the soundstage and everything, but the trick, the rub in all this is that it costs money that you have to pay eventually.
Right. It's not exactly cash exchange, but you pay it back for sure.
You got the button counters, the bean counters, and it's in there in the back.
Right.
You don't sell the album, you pay. And when you don't sell records, your whole world changes drastically. And it comes at you like war, almost. Not to compare it, but people start taking your cars away, start taking your homes away. You start paying it that way when you don't sell. Our second record didn't sell. But the point is that that's how I lived out here in LA originally. When I visited LA, I loved it. When I started living out here, I hated it.
What part? Where were you back then? Like when you first settled in?
We first started living in West Hollywood, and then from there we moved to Burbank.
Was it like the band living? Everyone like in the house, all the players and?
Well, originally what we did, we lived in a hotel on Sunset Strip, Sunset Boulevard. And after about a couple of months of living there, we realized it wasn't cost effective, or what I call the adults, the people taking care of us, saying, hey, it's not cost effective to live in a hotel. You should get your own place out there. So then we started getting our own places. Initially, we did room together. I laugh only because that only lasted one day.
Okay.
We got together for one day and realized we don't really want to live with each other. So then we all got our own places.
Okay.
Literally only lasted a day or two. We try to be poetic about it. Let's live together, do the record, and from a romantic POV, it sounded good. But from a realistic POV, it wasn't happening.
Right.
So that's when I first came out, and that was in the 70s. After that, I kept coming here on and off at adventures as New York started becoming kind of, for me, tired and old and expensive. I then, in the 90s, wasn't quite ready to live out here, but I wanted to feel it out. So financially, I was okay in the 90s. I had been doing a lot of stuff, so I was able to get a place in LA and a place in New York. So for quite a few years, I was bi-coastal. Then I ended the LA situation and just strictly New York. And then in the early 2000s, let me make the move.
Because like in the 90s, that's when you had shifted already more into acting and less music at that time.
Right, I was doing more work with film, both as an actor and writing music for film.
Right.
So those things were going on. So I was going back and forth from New York to LA. Then eventually, I just said, let me just make the move just in terms of a personal living situation. I also have family out here, and New York was just getting hectic and very not artist friendly. All the neighborhoods that have seem to be more orientated towards business people, accountants, lawyers. So Fort Greene, Dumbo, Manhattan areas, the East Village, the Lower East Side is just all becoming gentrified and cleaned up, which is okay. I can understand that angle. At the same time, it was just moving out the artists and everybody.
You were born uptown, or you were born in Manhattan?
Yes.
The Bronx?
No, Spanish Harlem.
Right.
Spanish Harlem. No, I wasn't. I was born in New York, but I grew up in Spanish Harlem.
Right.
But my stomping grounds was the South Bronx and Spanish Harlem, and sometimes Brooklyn. Right. So anyway, it just seems like it wasn't quite planned, but it just happened where one day I said, hey, boom, I'm off to California. And that was it. I've been here ever since. And I would go back and forth, but every time I go back to New York, I realize the only thing I really miss in New York are certain friends.
Right.
And certain family members. Then I had moved my parents out to California.
Oh, okay.
And dealt with that. And then I would just go back to New York for professional reasons. Occasionally to visit.
So when you got to the point of doing that first solo record, which is really like, I know there was such a great amount of musical history leading up to that, clearly, with the two previous groups, but you know,
which solo record?
The 12-year-old Genius.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like really my benchmark for you as like an artist on your own, you know, like
actually before that, if anything, would be the Que Pasa Mi No Papa.
Right, which is that was a shorter, but like not a full.
It was a 12-inch.
Right.
It was like two songs at once, but it was a 12-inch, and it was under the Kid Creole and the Coconuts presents Coati Mundi. So, but that was my first foray into being a solo artist. Before that, it was Savannah and Kid Creole. Strangely enough, that record, which was an offshoot, we, for marketing reasons, put Kid Creole and the Coconuts presents Coati Mundi, but it wasn't initially a Kid Creole and the Coconut record. It was my solo record, working with August Darnell and Z Records and all those people involved. So then we just threw Kid Creole and the Coconuts, and that record is really what established Kid Creole and the Coconuts overseas. That started to make noise. So this actually was the first sort of to speak single to propel Kid Creole and the Coconuts.
Interesting. But that was still a New York era for you too, even recording that, right? That album.
I'm sorry?
That was still like you still did that while you were living in New York? It's such a New York kind of
80s.
raw feel to it.
That was 81. But before that, I was with Kid Creole and the Coconuts, and still being a sort of a group member, and same thing with Savannah Band. But throughout the years, I wanted to keep growing and expanding, and so that was my first foray into that situation. Right. And then came the 12-Year Genius, which was really on the coattails of the success of Kid Creole and the Coconuts.
Yeah, but if you listen to it out of context and you're not like versed in the there's a pretty big discography for Kid Creole and the Coconuts. Obviously, right. I mean it's a big, very influential group. But if you somehow stumble into your record alone as its own thing, which I think some people did, and I feel like I got more into that than with the big band stuff. It's just it obviously has a very different kind of life and landscape as a project. Plus, it's just you did most of the production on it, right?
Right.
All the songwriting.
Right. I produced it and I wrote all the songs. It was 10 songs. I wrote 9 of the 10 songs. I did a cover of a Captain Beefheart song, Tropical Hot Dog Night. So yeah, that was all it gave me an opportunity to see what was inside of me. And back in those days, there weren't computers or anything. So all the ideas and everything lived inside of you. There was no way of seeing how they would actually sound until you really did it. Right. So while I was with Kid Creole and the Coconuts, half that album I did on my own before I even got the deal. Okay. So when I got the deal, I was ready to go. All I needed was a few more songs. But I was investing my own money. I had with partners in a recording studio. And that record I did, the musicians, including the string players and everything, the horn players, all did it on spec for me.
Oh, amazing.
And the reason I was able to do that was because I was using horns and strings for Kid Creole projects and other different projects, and I got to be friendly with a lot of the musicians. And they says, hey, if you ever need help with anything, so I says, look, I'm doing my own album. So I got this group called String Fever. This girl named Jill Jaffe supported me on it, and it was all women string players.
Oh, wow.
So
amazing.
That whole album is all females on strings.
No way, really? Oh, wow. Incredible.
Including Marin Alsop. I don't know.
I'm not familiar with her, no.
She is one of the top conductors in the world.
Really?
She was part of that string set. I had really great players there.
And this is all just comes from goodwill of working
goodwill,
in
and then
projects.
Charles Ogan would contract all the horn players for me. Now, Charles Ogan was a sax player in Kid Creole, but I met him outside of Kid Creole, and I brought him into the Kid Creole loop.
Right.
And so he says, if you need help with anything, back in those days, it wasn't so mercenary as it may be now. But because I've used these people and work and everything like that, so I didn't hesitate to ask for a favor. So they did it for me on spec. So basically, it was on a handshake. If I get a deal, I'll pay you guys this much money and everything like that. Sure enough, and so I did maybe 5-6 tracks. Then I got my deal. I got in advance, finished the album, and paid everybody for what work they done and the new work.
Wow. What was the label again, too?
It was originally on Virgin Records, my solo record. The great thing about it was that the player says, boy, it's one of the rare times we actually get paid for doing something on spec.
That's amazing.
But the great thing about it is that these musicians were top professional musicians that were working all the time. Right. But they were doing certain kind of work that was okay, and they might enjoy it, but to work on my album was something out of the beaten path for them, something different
clearly.
and everything like that. So So it was really a great experience, great adventure.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and I was so happy that I got the deal and I was able to pay them.
Right, absolutely.
And everything. And then after that, anytime I had work, I would just use the same people.
Oh, cool.
And do those type of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's such it's like such an angst. It's like a very angsty album, you know. But it has like this, like it's almost like Broadway, like calypso funk, but with this like real, like the subject matter is real, like has a dark underbelly to it, you know, like.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I'm very over the top theatrical personality on stage,
Right.
and wanted to see if I could capture that on vinyl. So, well, not back then, vinyl.
Yeah, it was fine. Yep.
Right. So here's the thing. Also, I've always had never let the lack of talent stop me from doing things.
Right.
I was not a singer. I was not anything. When I first started out, I was basically a vibraphone player.
Right,
Then I
right.
just had to collect from my toolkit different things in order for me to survive in the business.
Right.
When I did that album, I had no confidence in my voice as a singer.
Right.
I actually still don't. So I feel like I had to focus or accent other things.
Right.
That's why.
Well, like the humor too is amazing. I mean, it's a comedy. It's like a musical comedy.
Exactly. So it was like, hey, I'm Danny Kaye. I'm Bob Hope. I'm not Frank Sinatra.
Right.
Okay, so let me add these theatrical things to it. And yeah, you may not like my singing, but I'm not here trying to croon you.
Right.
Okay, I'm just trying to present a whole package: horns, strings,
Right.
humor, and subtle messages along the thing. So underneath the smile, there's the frown.
Right.
So I try to throw those things in. And because it was all in my mind, it was in a way experimental. I didn't know how these things were going to come out.
Very experimental.
And
yeah.
I was doing it on the go. So
What do you mean? Like it was just a song here, a song there, or like?
well, I would do the orchestrations, and then I saw that it was going a different direction than what I thought it would be inside my mind.
Right.
So then I had to adapt to that. So you're doing a rhythm section in the studio, and you think it's going to come out a certain way, and then it's going a whole different direction, so you go with the flow on that. All right, okay, we'll slow it up, or we'll speed it up. Let me change the chords here.
Right.
Let me change the rhythm here. Sometimes you write things that are not practical, that can't actually be captured, or certain things that are not meant for the personality you have there. It might have meant for some 18th century musicians in Hungary or something. So then I have to then change my vocals or change my lyric, and that on the go. It was not like I was doing demos and see how it goes and that. So that's the story behind that solo album. Which
How did they even how did Virgin even wrap their head around it? Like when you turned it in,
Well,
I mean, obviously it must be a tricky thing to
it
market.
was.
And promote.
It didn't do well at all commercially, and they were expecting Kid Creole and the Coconut success and that direction. I had some champions inside the company that liked it and everything like that, but they didn't really know what they were getting. It was more of a business decision for them to give me the record deal. First of all, Que Pasa Mina Papa was a big hit in England, where Virgin Records was headquartered. So I've already shown that I could do some stuff there. Then Kid Creole and the Coconuts was very successful.
Right.
So they gave me the deal, not based on anything I showed them. It was just based on that history and that success. I had been on the cover of Face magazine, which is I was one of the very few people that have been on the cover of Face magazine that was not a solo artist at the time. It was a sideman, sort of, the sidekick.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's how some may have identified with you, but I mean, you're also like this kind of larger-than-life character, too, like in the context of that, too.
Right. So for them to see me on Face and not having an album or anything like that, it was all part of the Kid Creole thing. So the fact that I had a big enough personality that Face magazine would put me on the cover, and then some other people follow suit, that's how I got my deal.
Nice.
But I didn't hide anything. They all heard they heard my song Que Pasa Mi No Papa. They heard me as a singer. Plus, I did some solo, some of the Kid Creole records I sang on those things. So it wasn't like I came off like Luther Vandross or something like that. So
they were like, even looking on YouTube, there's obviously like some great moments captured from that era too, with like the French and German TV appearances, and then there was, I was trying to find the music video for the second single. That didn't Don Letts produce a music video for you, or is,
Como Estás?
Yeah. What's the story with that? Because I was always intrigued by that video. It's just very New York, very raw, like almost on Super 8 film or something like that. Or
that turned out to be the first single, and that was the record company's decision and my decision that let's do that. So, being the first single, the promotion machine is behind it.
Right.
So it gave me a budget for video and everything like that.
Did you write the video too? Was it your concept?
It was my concept, along with Laurie Eastside, who was a choreographer there and who was also a female lead singer at Kid Creole in the early years. So we came together with Don Letts on that. Don Letts was recommended to me by Virgin Records.
Oh, okay, I see. Interesting.
So, and also I knew about him through Joe Strummer. And
did you know him?
Yeah. I just through the scene, I had met Joe and Mick. So they were friends and everything like that. So it was kind of a synergy that was happening. And actually, Mick from The Clash, his first wife was in the video.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was there hanging out.
Dancers. There was like a scene.
He's one of in the scenes in the bar. She's the blonde babe and the beautiful blonde babe in there.
Did you guys do shows together ever, or like back then? Were there any collaborations?
No, just back in the scenes when they came over to Bonds and played there.
Bonds International.
Right, and so I met them, and then they were fans of Kid Creole Coconuts, and then I remember one time hanging out at some Bob Gruen event. I'm hanging out with Joe Strummer and everything like that. And at the Ritz, I just met him on the scene. I don't know exactly how we met initially. So every time he would come into town, and then it got to a point I go to England. I don't drink alcohol at all. I only drank a Guinness beer once. That's with Joe Strummer.
Wow, that's cool. That's amazing.
I was in London, and I called him up, and he said, "I'll come over here, beautiful townhouse." And then he took me to a local pub.
Right.
He says, "You're gonna drink this, right?" I said, "No, I don't drink beer." He basically forced me to drink it, and so such a cool guy, and what he liked. And we speak Spanish because he spoke fluent Spanish.
Did he?
Right. Because he used to hang out in Spain all the time and stuff like that. So.
That's amazing.
Really cool guy. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
So anyway, Don Letts then did the thing, and we talked about it and everything. And Don Letts was into Kid Creole. He was into me and everything like that. So he basically wanted to do it and everything like that. Great guy also.
I mean, at that time in New York, you must have been like a real. I mean, obviously the nightlife was so full of like these really incomparable like characters, that are at the clubs. And I would just looking back at those videos too, and there's this like amazing that video that from Washington Square Park too, which you know what I'm talking about. It just captures such a moment where like.
Well, even that back in those days, it was. You do it on the go.
Right. So
we had Kid Creole and the Coconuts, and I did my solo record, Que Pasa Mi No Papa, and then my friend Ed Steinberg, he says, I want to do a video on you. He started Rock America. So at that time, before MTV, they used to distribute videos to the clubs. Right. They would show them on the screen and everything like that. So he had started this company that would do this distribution to different clubs, and the record companies would pay him to do these videos, and then he would distribute to
like almost like a record pool or something like that.
Yeah, but except it was for videos.
Interesting.
So he came up to me. I had no budgets for video or anything like that. I was with Z Records, which wasn't a big record company. Kid Creole was. So we would do very modest videos and everything like that. So he came up to me to do a video. I said, well, I can't pay you anything or whatever, and there's really no budget from the record company for the video. He says, oh, I'll do it for free and all that. Just let me distribute it to the clubs and everything like that. So that's how he would make his pennies. So in terms of the concept, I just says, brother, just turn on the camera and we'll go to different locations. So that Washington Square Park video, we must have done 10 takes there.
Oh, wow, okay. Because you're all over the park. I mean,
I'm
you're
all
like
over the
popping
park.
up on
But what people don't know is that we did that same thing all over the city. I did it in Spanish Harlem. I did it up at a boys club. We did it in different locations. Washington Square Park turned out to be the most vibrant, energetic part, and it had all these people, and it just turned out to be, this is the one.
Right.
But all day I was shooting that video, just like that. And I said, just turn on the camera, and I improv'd. I just totally improv, whatever. And we thought we would edit it where we'll have pieces from all the different locales.
Of course, right.
But it just seems to work in Washington Square Park. And then I just said, look, can we have maybe a little production value and go in the studio? So there's a part in the scene where we cut out, and when I go, Mino Popeye, I got a little gun, water guns, and you see the letters written out, Mino Popeye, olive oil.
Right.
That was our big production value, CGI type of thing. We didn't really need to do that, but I wanted to have it so that when people say, they put a little something other than just this guerrilla style of performing out in the streets. So that's the story behind that.
So were you how did you start acting around? Were you acting as well during that time? Because you shifted kind of into appearances and stuff, right?
Right. Well, the acting to me started when I was 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, cool. Right.
Before I did music. I like to entertain, like most kids. Uncle comes over, aunt comes over, ham it up for them, everything like that. Except that I didn't really have any skills or talent. I just did it because I wanted to see people laugh and smile. And I always had a look to do that. So much that when I was in school, like 6 years old, I was in the choir. But I couldn't sing. But they liked the way I look and the way I smiled and everything. They put me in the choir. And he says, don't sing anything, just move your mouth. And I went with that.
Wow.
So I would just move my mouth, have this energy, even at 6 years old, that the school liked. But I could not sing.
So did you recognize that back then? Like you're like I feel like comfortable in this.
No, I just like to entertain. That's what I did recognize. But I didn't say, look, I'm an entertainer. I just went and did it.
Right.
So I really think that's where it started. Now, before Kid Creole and the Coconuts, before Savannah Band, I was what I call a serious musician.
Right.
I played vibes and keyboards for different bands, salsa bands, soul bands, and everything like that. And really, I was into trying to be without any training, be a serious cat musician, freelancing, get calls on weekends, do all that kind of stuff.
Right. A self-taught vibraphone.
Right. Actually, I'm not self-taught as a vibraphone player.
Okay.
I studied for a year before I started playing with bands, but cool. I actually was taking lessons and the whole bit. My dad had bought me the vibraphones and at the same time signed me up with a private music teacher. This private music teacher was named Warren. He taught me so much. He was a Broadway musician, so he taught me all about chords and theory. So after a year, I knew more than all my other friends that were musicians and everything like that. I knew all my progressions and the whole bit scales.
Who were you listening to back then? Were you were you influenced by who was like Milt Jackson or more jazz, or was it more
right?
From
well, I was listening to as Vibus was Milt Jackson, Cal Jada, Bobby Hutcherson.
Yeah, Cal Jada, right.
My boy George Rodriguez from the New Swing Sextet in terms of Latin. Tommy Barrios, I was with Joe Cuba. Pucho and the Latin Soul Brothers, was listening to those cats. And then I was terms of orchestras, it was Machito and Tito Puente, Calgeda, of course. In terms of music. But I also was really the one guy that really captured my imagination was Lionel Hampton.
Yeah, amazing.
Because not only did he play vibes, I thought, man, he's playing piano, he's playing drums, but he had this face, this character on him, and I was really gravitated towards him. And he was the early pioneer of the instrument also.
Yeah.
In terms of music, Calgeda was the guy.
Right. Incredible.
And then Tito Puente also played vibes. So those guys, in terms of musicianship, Calgeda could flow with any groove, any genre. So could Tito Puente. So those guys.
It's such an amazing instrument too. I mean, there's so much versatility, I think, with it too, right?
Now, in terms of a performer, I was fascinated by Danny Kaye.
Right.
Because he would do things with his mouth that seemed to me like what I call verbal gymnastics or dramatic verbal projection.
Right.
Not fascinating in terms of being a character, but I like the tongue twisters and all that. Right. So I try to work that into my thing also. It was like scat singing, but more physical than melodic. Like Ella Fitzgerald does those rhythmic melodic things. So when I would do little things, I would love to use that kind of thing with my mouth, just to, like I would do like a P alliteration. And the polemic proliferation, principles, purpose, possibilities, physiological, psychological principles. We're here at Mickey D's, so I don't want to get too crazy, but I would then go all over and do those kind of things. Just for the fun of it. Then I would work it into my one-man show that I used to do years back.
What was that? What was that all about? The one-man show? This predates any of the...
No. This was in the early 2000s that I started putting that together.
Yes.
Because all along, I'm always trying different things.
Sure.
As I tell people, I'm always looking for new forms of rejection. I get tired of the old ones. So first it was music, and then I would get rejection, try to get record deals on this, record deals on that, and once in a while something will get through. And then I want to become a songwriter in the thing, and songs don't get released, and then become an arranger. I don't get arranged jobs, and so I start getting into acting, and then I get rejection there. Sometimes I'll get a couple of jobs here or there.
Right.
And then I started trying to write. Wrote a book, got no deal there, and so...
What was the book about?
My experience in Facebook.
Really? That's amazing.
So...
like learning how to learn to get around Facebook?
No.
Or just your human experience dealing with it?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I was always anti-social media. I didn't even know what it was. And I discovered it because I won't get into details now, but I was going through a personal crisis in my life.
Okay.
And I sort of had to step away from the show business.
Right.
So as I was dealing with this personal crisis in my life and unable to do what I do, which is entertain,
right,
somebody turned me on to it, and I saw that I could use this media to entertain people, even if it's little vignettes or little posts or little jokes or little stories.
Sure.
And people would, instead of just putting pictures up there or saying I'm here eating at the cafeteria, I actually would write little vignettes and things and fun things and share some behind the scene tidbits of what's going on in the business and all that stuff. And so I was entertaining a lot of people, and I would get private messages, or I would also say some I would share certain philosophies and pearls of wisdom. So I try to get that old sage in me out there and stuff. And I would get private messages of people thanking me for doing this and all that.
Right.
So then it became a cyber stage for me to keep doing what I do, which is entertain.
Right.
So then I wanted to get a compilation of all these things that I wrote on Facebook, and then also share how these things came to life. When I post something or a picture and the captions, the true behind story behind all that. Of course, I love creating, but I hate selling.
I can understand that.
Trying to get the deal. So after a couple of rejections, I was like, forget it. Maybe later on I'll pursue it when I write my second book, which will never get released. So like I was saying, I'm just, when I get bored of getting rejected, I try to go into a new field, because then I'm jazzed up and everything. Eventually I get rejected there and I'll find something else. That's why I'm getting ready to go into stand-up comedy. But I've actually done that before a long time ago.
Yeah? How was the experience the first go at it?
Well, it was fun because which led to my one-man show.
Right.
I would do just myself on stage. But instead of doing, like, say, a joke, wait for a laugh and all that, I wanted to do things more like what Andy Kaufman did.
Sure.
It was an inspiration where he has more of a vignette, a character. So I would do those things. And together, after a while, I then put it all together as a one-man show. And I actually put it up in New York 15 years ago or something like that, where I was on stage for an hour and a half doing all different types of characters, but all tied together as a storyline.
Right.
And it was a play I did, which I call a performance art play.
Okay.
So I love Richard Pryor, Andy Kaufman, and Leonard Bruce. Those were my guys.
Of course.
And also, who passed away, George Carlin.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the kind of things that I was trying to do. And sometimes I go all over the map. I've been accused of having an identity crisis. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, you were telling before we really started. You were telling me a little bit about this newer idea. I mean, do you want to talk about that at all? Like the.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet? But it's kind of along in that
right,
realm,
I'm doing an
direction.
independent film, and it's going to be about a certain person, a certain character.
Right.
So, but I can't get into details
Yeah,
because
that's
it may
fine.
never come out or something. Who knows?
But you're playing a character.
Yeah, I'm playing the character. You'll probably be the only one that I even hint at it.
Okay.
So if it becomes big time, I'm a big star. I'm on billboards and all that.
Then we'll have this interview to look
Right,
back on.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you could, I'd love to hear a little bit more about just like some of that foray into acting, because obviously there's some.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the thing. Okay, this is what I wanted to tell you. Before Savannah Band, I was like the serious musician, trying to get gigs here and there. I started playing vibes. Vibes, even to this day, is still a rare instrument. A lot of people, if I tell them I play vibraphones, they don't know what it is. They will know marimba. They kind of heard that name, or xylophone.
Yeah. A xylophone, right.
But they don't really know what vibraphones are, or vibes, which is the short name of it.
What's the technical
vibrahos.
difference between a vibraphone and a xylophone? Is there a difference?
Yeah, there is. Vibraphones is made out of metal bars.
Right.
Whereas xylophones and marimba are made out of wood.
Right. Okay, right.
Vibraphones, you have an electric element to it, which allows a certain resonation and vibration. Whereas marimbas is just, you can't sustain the note unless you roll it or anything like that. And then the xylophone is just a different higher tone of the marimba. Mm-hmm. Marimba can go all the way down in terms of the scales and everything. Very popular in mariachi bands in South America. So the instrument was very rare in the 70s and late 60s when I started. I started as a teenager. So after a while, the way I used to work, because there wasn't too many bands. Like if you play drums or guitar or some horn, you get work. But vibraphones, there were very few bands that had vibraphones in them.
Right.
In the 40s, they had more bands. In the 40s, during the jazz era, you would see the instrument more. In the 50s, you didn't see it at all. And then in the 60s, you would see it in certain Latin bands, like sextet and jazz bands.
Right.
But for the most part, the instrument was not very popular. I wouldn't recommend anybody to take it up. I would tell them take up accordion, guitar,
right.
or drums.
Well, it's heavy. It's hard to store.
Exactly.
Did you have a walk-up? Did you have to
No,
carry
I
it
had
up a
an elevator,
walk-up?
but it was always a hassle trying to get into a cab. A lot of times
Did you have to take it to gigs?
I had to take it to gigs,
Wow.
and if I couldn't get a cab, I'd go on the train station. I always had to have somebody carry it with me.
So, yeah.
Sometimes I just had to roll it. When I first got the instrument, I literally used to set up and roll it down the street, and then it got damaged that way. Then I bought cases for it. They wouldn't fit in cabs and everything. It was always a hassle. And then eventually, you had to get somebody's. We didn't have a car, and I couldn't drive. I was too young or anything. But if one of my friend's father had a car or wagon, then he would give us a hand or give him $5, take us to the gig or something like that. It was just not pragmatic. I don't know why I dealt with that instrument, but it was always a headache and a hassle, except when I played it. I loved it.
The incredible sound.
Exactly. Now, I used to get jobs because sometimes bands couldn't find a piano player, so I would play piano parts on the vibes, and so they would call me. And then with electric pianos and everything like that, and electric pianos being portable, I started getting less calls as a vibe player. So I said, I should learn to play piano. So I went to my mom and dad again. This guy's got a piano, and I self-taught myself piano. And then I started getting jobs playing piano. But I must say, though I enjoyed the music, I was bored most of the time. So when I would do these, like for example, if I played vibes, for every note I played on the vibes, I would do 100 dance steps. And then on piano, I would go underneath the piano and I would do all these crazy things, playing these real typical 1-2 notes and 1-1 things. It just bored me. I wanted to perform. And yeah, people would dance and everything like that, but I actually wanted attention.
Right.
I wanted people to actually look. If people dance, you're doing good, right?
Right. Of course.
Like if you're a DJ and people are dancing to your music, you're doing good. No, I want motherfuckers to look at my ass. Oh, here I am, man. So now I would play in these bands, and I would play with these real strict, old school men that didn't appreciate my Jimi Hendrix antics. So when I got away from the Coochie Frito and Chitlin circuit and started doing more of the rock and soul and Latin, all that, I was able to come out like a butterfly. I was just able to let that inner showman show off. Basically, I just always wanted to be a professional show-off. Then, when I got into Savannah Band, I was able to let that come out more. But I was starting to let it come out. So, the way I got into the acting was, in the bands I performed at, was I bring my theatrics to it. I brought it into Savannah Band, into Kid Creole, and everything like that. So, one day a producer comes up to me when I'm performing with Savannah Band somewhere. Again, he comes up to me, he says, look, I want to use you for film. And then I said, oh, okay, so I'm sorry for the delay. I'm just trying to get the facts together. There was a point where I was performing with Savannah Band, and there was a segue point where the Savannah Band Kid Creole existed. Right. So myself and Kid Creole, we were both, August Darnell, we were both with Savannah Band.
Well, who's the band leader again for Savannah Band?
Savannah Band was Stoney Broader.
Yeah.
He was the leader. Anyways, Savannah Band, there was a lot of craziness going on. At the same time, the leader of Kid Creole and the Coconuts, August Darnell, was starting his band. I was co-leader, assisted him on that. So at one point, we were doing both.
Wow.
We were performing with Savannah Band and the beginnings of Kid Creole. During the Savannah Band show, I met this producer that says, I'm going to call you to do some things. So I said, cool. So I gave him my number. Fast forward, Kid Creole and the Coconuts is now in full stride. I get a call from this producer, and he says, I want to use you in a film called Easy Money with Rodney Dangerfield.
Okay. This is mid 80s now, right? Or early
right,
80s?
Early 80s.
Right, okay.
Early 80s. So at the time, Billy Joel was doing the soundtrack.
Wow.
At the time, I was getting ready to go on tour with Kid Creole and Coconut, so I already had a commitment.
Right.
So when they first, the producer told me the casting director is going to call me and stuff like that. So when they first approached me, shows you how this business works. I told them, look, I'm getting ready to go on. They wanted me to do a screen test. I said, look, I'm not going to do a screen test. I'm going on tour and everything like that. I'm going to be able to do this. And even if I'd done the screen test, it would have meant that I would have to delay me going on tour, which...
Yeah, they would have pulled you from the... And it was already confirmed. And
right. They would have just pulled me off the tour or something.
Yeah, that could have thrown everything
so
off.
The screen test doesn't give you a commitment for the job.
Sure.
Right? It's an audition, basically. So I tell them, look, I won't be able to do that. I've already committed to this thing. So they said, all right, forget the audition, forget the screen test. We actually want you for this thing. It's like if I had challenged their power or something like that.
And they're like, yeah, okay.
Okay, so I says...
you were playing, they thought you were maybe playing hard to get or something.
Yeah. So that's then I got a lawyer to represent me. I said, find out what they're offering.
Right.
And he says, they're offering this for you, which was nice money, but not enough to warrant me leaving the group and not going on tour and all that stuff.
Especially because was this like the first tour that you guys were going to be doing?
Well, we had done a few tours, but this was going to be a major tour.
The Leisure Tour?
A major tour.
Yeah, but wasn't there one called the Leisure Tour?
Yeah, but this was going to be before the... It was going to be...
It was like the big breakout tour or something, right?
Right. Our third album was a big hit in Europe
absolutely.
And everything like that. And it was going to be the Tropical Gangster Tour, Wise Guy Tour.
Wise Guy, of course. Yeah. So this is like theaters or big theaters?
This was big. I said, hold it, this could jeopardize my whole position in Kid Creole and make a ton of money and all this potential thing. So I tell him, no, it's not going to be enough money. I told my rep, just tell him it's not enough. So then they upped it. They offered me something like $50,000, which in the early 80s is a ton of money.
Sure.
Actually, I'll take 50 now.
Yeah, that doesn't sound bad at all.
And then I think it got to like 75, but I said, no, it's not going to happen for that. So they said, we'll give you a song on the soundtrack album. Billy Joel was going to do it. The soundtrack, and I would get a song on that. Mm-hmm. So I told my rep, man, I started sweating. So I told him, look, let's do this. If they can I gave them a figure, I figured out what it was. If they can pay this figure plus a soundtrack on it, then it would make it worthwhile for me to make a serious career change. So I gave them an outlandish fee. Kind of knowing they're not going to go for it, but if they did, all right, I'll be the asshole. Right. Everybody has a price, right? So now mind this during this whole process, I did meetings with them. I took a meeting on with Rodney Dangerfield's manager, I forget her name, Sydney something, Emler or something like that, and they then balked at the final film. That's cool. And I went on my tour, and I was glad that was the way it's supposed to be, the journey. Right. Now, that same producer didn't give up on me.
Okay.
He then calls me again after the tour. He says, I'm now producing a new TV series called Miami Vice, and I want to use you on that. And at the time he called me, I was not doing anything, and I didn't even audition for that. He says the casting director is going to call you to do it. And my first Miami Vice was with Bruce Willis.
Wow.
And the producer was John Nicolella. He was along with Michael Mann.
And they just had the part waiting for you.
He liked me. And he says, when you come back, give me a call and all that. And I would. And that was my first foray into acting as an actor.
Interesting. Cool.
Now I was in film before that called Get Crazy that Alan Arkish, who directed Rock and Roll High School, was in. And I was in that as a musician. And that I got into because I had some time off and I went to see my friend Laura Eastside, who was working on the film. She had a big part in the film. And I was just hanging out behind the scenes on the set. And so there was a part where they needed somebody to play the guitar player in Malcolm McDowell's band. He was also in the film. So Laurie says, hey, look, Mundi's here, and the director knew of me from Kid Creole and all Savannah band. He said, hey, you want to play the part? I says, okay, fine. So as a musician, and I don't play guitar, but I faked it on stage. And I'm part of Malcolm McDowell's band. So that was like the early film I was in. But not
as like a band member.
As a band member, but not as an actor. But the Miami Vice was my first foray as a.
That was a recurring. Was that a recurring? Was it a recurring role?
In Miami Vice?
Yeah, you came back.
No, I did it a few times, but it wasn't a recurring role. Actually, the series cast members used to call me the Ghost because I would get killed off and then I'd come back as another character.
Oh shit! Wow.
But they were always different. I did 3 of them, and they were different characters.
Each one was a different character. That's hilarious.
Even if I got killed off, I come back as a different character. So I was doing a Lazarus thing, so to speak.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's true versatility as an actor, right there.
I don't know, but I go with the flow, bro.
Right.
It's like I always feel like I did the same thing. I don't know what I did. I had no idea what I was doing.
Right. But you've definitely got like this very particular kind of charm that they obviously wanted to like have like sort of light up the screen, like when I'm sure when you were
yeah, but I did not know anything of what I was doing. I thought I was an actor, but I really didn't know what I was doing. And actually, it came to surface in the last Miami Vice I did. I'll give you a quick story.
Yeah.
I'm doing this Miami Vice, and in it, I'm supposed to whisper. And I actually do whisper. But it's on TV. It's not the real thing, right? It's a film. So it says, no, we can't hear you. But I have to say some dialogue. Right. It says that you whisper the dialogue. So I forgot what dialogue I go. No, we gotta hear you. Do a stage whisper. Right. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. I don't even know what that is. How does it?
Well, a stage. Hey, man, what's going on, man? What are you doing? It's like you get the sound of a whisper, but you project it loud.
Sure.
Director sensed that I didn't know what he was talking about. So he calls this young actor that was also in that particular episode, 21, 22. He says, show him the stage whisper. And he did. That young actor that showed me the stage whisper was Benicio del Toro.
Wow.
It was his first TV thing, film thing, and all that.
Wow. And he was your stage whisperer.
Right. He demonstrated what that was for me. I had seen him a few times. We laughed about it.
Yeah.
Since even after he became a big time guy, I haven't seen him in a while. But I once went to a thing and he saw me. He was giving a talk or something, a lecture, and he saw me in the audience and he called out to me. It was like cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So now after that, I says I'm never going to be embarrassed like this again. Right. I started taking acting lessons to learn all the technical stuff and the whole rigmarole about it. I don't know if it made me a better actor, but at least I knew the technical terms.
Sure. So one thing, I mean, obviously I'd love to know just what, you've done a few Spike Lee movies, so those experiences must have been pretty unique onto themselves too, right? Like,
they were good and bad things.
Betta Blues?
Right, that was my first thing with Spike Lee on that.
Which is an incredible film. I mean, you're in the club.
Right, I'm the doorman in the club, and
do you know what was the club that they shot it at?
It was someplace. It wasn't a club. They created a club out of it.
I see. Okay. I always wondered that if it was an existing New York City nightclub.
No. They created they took a place and just created it.
Cool.
But I forgot where they did it at. I forgot where it was because what it is that the door was in Manhattan, the actual club was in Brooklyn, and then the alley was somewhere else. So, and they all put it together, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was with Denzel Washington and Samuel Jackson. A lot of serious people on that film.
And yeah, it's amazing. I think it might be one of my favorites that he did. I mean, and Wesley Snipes was incredible in it too, and the band. I mean,
no, the way I got into that was also an accident. I would go to the Knicks games,
right?
And one time I ran into Spike Lee. This was before he was real famous. He just came out with "She's Gotta Have It,"
right?
Right, and so
School Days was next.
No, right, but his first film.
Right, she
started getting a lot of notoriety over that stuff. Spike was a big fan of Savannah Band and also
cool.
Kid Creole, so we ran into it, and I didn't know who he was, and he came up to me and said, "Savannah Band, shake the fun, all that stuff." I knew of his name, I just didn't know how he looked, but I had read something about him. They said, "Hey, I'm Spike Lee." I said, "Oh wow." Boom, 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 hi, this and that. Fast forward, I had heard about this more Betta Blues from my agent.
Okay.
And so I went to audition for the drummer.
Really? Wow.
And then when I went to the audition thing, I don't play drums. I'll fake any instrument. Like I tell people, I don't care. I'll let lack of talent stop me from doing anything, except maybe surgery. I don't want to get sued, but so Spike gives me a look at the audition. He says, "You play drums?" And he gives me this smirk. I said, "Yeah, I play drums," because I knew I could fake. Because for the films, you're not playing it live,
right?
So I said I could fake it and all that. He didn't buy it. He said, "Look, I got this other part for you as a doorman." So I said, "Okay, cool." So he gave it to me. And the guy that he got on drums, Tane Watts, great drummer, we played with
and that
Bransford Masadas.
Right, yeah, and he played that role well, especially the on stage.
Yeah, he was great. He was the real deal.
Right.
So that's how that came about. Right. But it was disappointing in that I did a lot of nice things on that film that never made
really?
The final
scenes that got cut? Really?
It was a pretty long movie, if you remember.
Yeah.
It was pretty long as it was. And I shared my disappointment with Spike.
Did you?
Because I also did looping for that movie.
Oh, right.
And I said, "Man, I did some cool things." Even some of the actors says, "Man, you had a know-nothing part that you turned into something." Because I kept throwing in ideas and doing this and all that. And even Denzel appreciated it.
Yeah? Do you remember any of those scenes?
Yeah, I remember a few things. I'm not going to get into it, but I remember sharing my disappointment with Spike.
Right.
He told me, "Well, look, we had to do some editing. It was between you and Denzel."
Okay.
So you had to go. So I said, "Okay, I get it." And then after that, he would call me for different things, all that stuff. Even some of those things, I didn't know what the hell I was doing on there. I said, "Why am I here?" I would have some readings with like serious, top-notch actors. And I felt like such an idiot during those readings because I didn't know what I was doing. These people knew it, and sometimes Spike. One project I worked on with Spike, he sort of like kept me after school because he thought I was like so off in the reading.
Really?
That he worked with me on the side.
Right.
So he put up with some of my things.
What was it? You did He Got Game as well?
I did. Yeah. He Got Game.
And then there was one or two other ones. I didn't write these down, but
is that Girl 6, I did.
Right. Yeah.
Girl 6.
Speaking of that, did you?
And some things that I wasn't on film, I did voiceovers for.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I did. He did a documentary on Jim Brown, the football player. I did some voiceovers on that. I did voiceovers for Summer Sam.
Oh, really? Okay.
And some things I even consulted on.
Right.
Like in the Summer Sam inside the disco clubs and everything like that.
Like the DJ? Wait, what was it? Yeah, because there was a scene, I don't know, because Bobbito was the DJ. Bobbito Garcia in New York was the DJ in one of those scenes in Summer Sam. I'm trying to remember.
Okay, he might have been for Summer Sam, but I wasn't in the film. But
yeah.
Well, for example, I've also worked as a music supervisor, so for certain things I will consult just voluntarily.
Right.
So, for example, in Summer Sam, it took place in the 70s, and we have what they call the loop group or the Walla Walla group, and doing voiceovers and looping. So sometimes you're working with some people that either were not around or forgotten, and you're making up talks in the clubs and everything like that, and they're using lingo that is of the day but wasn't back then.
Right.
So sometimes he'll let me, hey, you're in charge, and then I would say, hey, we're not saying those hip-hop phrases or anything like that.
Yes, it's like inaccurate for the time.
Right. So
did you do consulting on 54 too?
I was music supervisor on that. And I played a DJ on that. I was supposed to do all the DJ parts on that, but I was doing so many things that they got somebody else to play the DJ, and I would do a couple of spots as a DJ in there, but I was the music supervisor on that, did consulting. But like on summer, a lot of times, even when I'm an actor, I keep my music supervisor hat on, so when I hear things that might create problems for the film, I'll volunteer the information. So for example, when certain actors start singing in a scene, sometimes the directors not realize it. They improvise things, and I tell them, look, this is going to cost you $250,000. This guy's improvising a melody that's not in the public domain.
Right.
I worked with Spike also on Bamboozled.
Right.
And there's a scene in there where the MC, he started singing the Dr. Pepper song, improvising. And I went to Spike, hey, like, this guy's doing this, it's going to cost you some money. And then Spike would go, hey, don't sing that melody.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. So, and I've done that on other films. I tell people, don't do that. Or there are scenes where you're in a club scene and they have temp music in there, and people are singing along to that.
Right.
And I tell them, hey, don't sing along to it, it's just temp.
Right.
Because
they can switch the music out too, right? Is that
they
what
switch the music out, but sometimes they capture the audio of the scene. So if you got a scene with, let's say, 100, 200 people singing along to it, it could create problems different ways. Is that if they're singing along to it, you got them to mute all that stuff and loop all that in if they're recording something's live. Or if they're clapping or dancing in a certain way to a temp track, and then you try to put new things, they'll limit you because the people are doing things a certain rhythm.
Right.
So when I've worked those jobs, I've had to supervise those things. But sometimes I'll give it off for free if I'm an actor and I see there are things that's going to create problems in post-production. I'll share that with the producers or directors.
Right. Yeah, there's not a lot of actors that probably have that kind of background that you're coming there with, too.
Well, a lot of people leave things in post-production, and me having worked in post-production, the editors get all these things, and it's like a headache. It's like now they got to fix this and move this and sync this up and do all that. So you try to tell people to have it right so that when it gets to the end, they could do the main job, which is to create the story.
Right.
Not trying to be bogged down with technical glitches. Because the director is either not aware of situations or don't care, or producer is just talking on his phone with certain things that are going on.
So where are things at now with acting? Is it something that's still kind of like, are you still going out for stuff? Or
It's been pretty dismal. I would love to do acting full time, and the last couple of years I've gone out for not a ton of things. So I don't get opportunities to go out for things. But the things I've gone out for have been rejected royally. So
well, that's not good.
No, it's not. It sucks. So I got to create my own project.
Well, kind of going fast forwarding to that too is that how after so many years of the 12-year-old genius, you put another solo album out 20 years later or more than that, So, and that's how I met you too, is through DJ Spun. and Wrong Music guy. So, even before we kind of wrap things up a little bit, I'd love to just talk about that experience, because it's like, for people that don't know that record, which you're going to have to say the title of it, because I know I'll flub it if you can remember. Can you remember it?
Dancing for the Cabana Code in the Land of Boo-Hoo.
Yeah, I would flub that. Which also is like an ode to, or an homage to Savannah Band, too.
Exactly. Well, here it is. I've done a lot of records and everything. And I was pretty much fed up with the whole music business, the whole recording business. It just didn't jazz me up anymore, and there was no work on it, and I wasn't a kid anymore. It's like when I first started to have my name on a record, whether I got paid or not, jazzed me up. Right. I was all into it. After years, between all my solo stuff and Savannah Band and Kid Creole, and I've also worked on other people's records. I've worked with Hall & Oates. I've done Madonna's Who's That Girl soundtrack. I had a song on that, and I've done a bunch of things and all that. So to put out a record, it doesn't mean anything to me unless there's something behind it. So I was working with my co-writer and co-producer on that Ilan Palushko, and he wanted to do some things together. So I'm always getting people that want to do things with me, and it doesn't mean anything to me, because I'm beyond when I was a kid. Hey, let's get together and have fun and all that. Please, I've got so many things in the closet that have not and probably will not see the light of day. Really? So for me to create more material that isn't going anywhere doesn't mean anything. Plus, at the same time, I come from the era of A&R, where you're coming out with stuff and then people are telling you, change this, change that, do this, do that. I lived with that all my life, and you have to adapt. I've had to learn along the way not to be married to everything that I'm passionate about. Right.
But I mean, they pretty much were hands off on a lot of that stuff.
This is what I told them. I told them was, all right, look, let's do some music. But I told Ilan, yes, we'll do it together, but I'm the final voice on this thing. Right. I decide the direction. I decide if there's a thing of you want this note and I want this note. I'm the senior. I have seniority in this thing. Okay. So that was cool with it. He was cool with that. He was totally cool with that. And then when DJ Spun's label came into the picture through Ilan's friend, I basically told him too, I'm going to do something which is totally experimental, and I come whatever, and I don't want no A&R or anything like that. And he was cool with that. And that's how that came about. Some things came out great on that thing, some things came out not so great, but everything I loved on it doesn't matter. I mean, and it was a journey. Right. And that's what, and I says, I'm not going to do Savannah Band. I'm not going to do Kid Creole and Coconuts. I don't know what kind of songs, and I'm not going to do basic song structures on that.
No, it's nothing like that.
I says, I'm going to do whatever comes into mind with no, like, I want to sound like this person and make it sound like this, like that, so you can have a hit or anything. This is what I'm going to come out and they were open-minded and pioneering spirit also. And they were cool, and it came out, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't a big success, but to me, creatively, it was a big success, and a lot of people appreciated it. Yeah. And now I may put out again. All the rights have been reverted back to me, masters and everything. So who knows? I might still put it out again somewhere.
It's worth revisiting for sure. Yeah.
And also, I remastered and remixed the former 12-Year-Old Genius record.
Amazing. All right.
So I'm going to try to find a label that will put that out. And it sounds great. I've had some friends in Europe from Croatia remix it.
Oh, amazing.
And it sounds, I don't mean to do a remix. Actually, I took the old multi-tracks, made digital audio tracks out of them. And then my friends in Europe, Tomo and Miriam, Idea Music, they did me a favor and as a gift, they remixed it for me.
Incredible. I'd love to hear
And it sounds amazing. The guy that got this guy named Deuce did it, and it was really amazing stuff. So I want to put that out again with some extra bonus tracks of things I've done that I have in storage. Some great stuff.
Oh, that, yeah.
So back in the day when you did vinyl, you could only put so much records on there because it limited the amount of time. Now with CDs or with digital downloads, I could put 12, 14 things in there. So I got those 10 tracks on there and a bunch of things, and I would like to throw that out. But I don't want to throw it out just to throw it out. I would like to get a company to do a little promotion on it. I don't have the money now to do my own promotion and hire somebody.
Yeah, there should be something behind
but
it.
if I could partner up with somebody that would do it and that would even do the old album, and then I want to do a new record called Blue Mundi, which is a compilation of jazz-oriented stuff that I've done through the years that I have in storage. And there's certain things tracks that I have to remix or complete and everything like that. So I would like to put those things out.
Can you still do you still have vibraphone at your in your
I
residence?
still do. In my residence, I have the original vibraphones that my dad made.
No
Rest
way.
in peace, got me.
Amazing.
I've had so many of them. I've had 10, 12, but through touring, they've gotten destroyed.
Right.
And then as I go up and down the roller coaster of life, and I lived in small places, and I couldn't fit them all, or I couldn't afford storage spaces, I either sold them or gave them away.
Right.
But I always kept the original ones that my dad got me. A pair of Jenko Vibes. I can use a new pair of Vibes, but I don't play out anymore, so there's no reason from an economic POV for me to get them or buy them. I'd rather use the money to pay my rent.
Yeah. But you can still have. Do you ever play them at home and all?
Yeah, I do. I play them at home, and I.
Interesting.
I go through periods of practicing woodshedding. Like up to this year, I was woodshedding a lot. Then I got tired of woodshedding, and I wanted to use the time to work on some other things, and other projects, and all that.
Yeah.
But it is ingrained, man. I can jam. I can still jam.
Yeah.
If something comes up, I could do it.
Right.
Within a certain amount of reason, I'll go in there, boom, 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 boom. I'm ready to go. What are we doing?
Right.
Then again, I wouldn't hire myself out for certain things. I love classical music, but I can't play it. So, I'm not Milt Jackson. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm just me. So I could do my thing with it.
Right.
No problem. I could play with a Latin band or something like that. But that's my past life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look for, like I said, a new thing. So I want to go into stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And when I do the stand-up comedy, if I get rejected, at least the overhead won't be that much.
No, you just walk off stage.
Right. When I do music, the overhead is tremendous. I've paid musicians.
Right.
I've paid cartage, travel this, travel that, rehearsals and all that.
Yeah.
Stand-up is just me, man.
Yeah.
I just paid the guests to get to the place.
Right. And, the rejection is not, it comes with the territory with that.
Right,
too.
exactly. So,
well, I hope that, you have a smooth transition into that. I think it's time. I think it might be a good phase to venture into that world, too.
Well, you get into grooves, like with the acting. Back in the 80s, back in the 90s, I was in a groove. I was living in New York. I've been doing a lot of things and everything like that. I'll share a personal thing with you. In the last few years, I got out of the business because to take care of my family.
Right.
I was able to do the Cabana Code record, but it took a bunch of years to do that because in between my caretaking services for my parents and other family members, I left LA, went south to take care of them. I had to really leave the business.
Right.
Because I couldn't, on a grind, day to day, go to dishes, do this, do that, or could afford to do projects that don't pay.
Right.
Before you can invest your time on speculative projects and things like that. So, in the process of taking care of my family takes priority.
Right. Absolutely.
I had to leave the loop of show business. I mentioned earlier the whole Facebook thing. The reason that came about was because I'm taking care of my family and I'm unable to do what I do best. So when I mentioned that personal thing was I was taking care of I moved my parents out here who was getting very ill. Plus I had some other family members so I couldn't really do show business. So I was using social media, to keep that muscle up of entertaining.
You stay connected with people.
Right. I wouldn't share my personal stuff, but that I do. Because inside, that's what I do. That's part of me, being an entertainer. Whether I get paid for it or not, it doesn't matter. If I'm with you, and I can make you smile or laugh or whatever, or have you mesmerized even by a dramatic story, that jazzes me up in terms of life. So now, my parents are gone. I'm still taking care of family members, but I have my mobility. I am now trying to get back into the business. But a lot of years have passed. I don't have the history to give me advantage. So there's a whole new generation that don't know anything about me. So I'm sort of starting from the beginning. In a way, I kind of like it. So I've been going to, let's say, auditions and doing things and all that from scratch. But it's the way I started off, without a history. It's just based on what you can offer.
Right.
So that's been the challenge for me. At the same time, is when you're getting older, you don't put up with a lot of stuff. So there's certain things I'm not going to do, I'm not going to go out for, or whatever.
Right.
So it's a challenge right now for me trying to do this, because part of me is, I have a love-hate relationship with the business of show. So it tends to, your spirit and your enthusiasm, it tends to drain that. And you really don't want to do it anymore. But I'm not independently wealthy or anything. I still got to do that. And when I go to bed at night, it's in there.
Yeah.
I could.
You need to get it out eventually. Right.
I could, when I'm awake during the day, I could fool myself, says I don't really want to do this, I don't care, or anything like that. When at night, when everything is, you're just there by yourself, and you got your dreams, and you got this, that spirit and fire is still in me. It's just during the day, I just cover it up, I put a blanket over it, I put some water, I douse it out with a fire extinguisher or something like that. But it says, I'm still living. I don't know when my last breath is, but I know it ain't this moment now as I speak with you.
Well, I hope it's
maybe
not in
in 5
McDonald's.
minutes, but right now I'm still going. So you gotta live in the moment, in the now.
Absolutely.
Whatever age you're, whether you're 1 or 100, you gotta live in the moment. I've met people that are in their 90s, even my own parents, still had plans and dreams to the day they died.
Of course.
So you're going through the life's challenges and stuff like that. And I'm trying to get back in, and it's different. It's cruel. This business will try to cut you up.
But I mean, you could probably. I mean, we could both agree that it's probably always been like that too. I mean, you have to be a bit of a masochist to stick around and step away and come back, and step away and come back. I mean, I've done that many times myself too.
Right. I think all of us, in whatever capacity we're in, there's a certain amount of, like you said, masochism involved in it, that you take a lot of things just for that one moment of pleasure or fulfillment.
Well, it's like you said too with the album when we were talking about your debut album, where it was I forgot exactly the analogy you made, but it was something about removing the mask underneath. It's like even like the that classic like theater icon of like the smiling face and
the sad face. Right.
Yeah, the sad face. That's right.
Tears of a Clown also.
Right. Yeah.
So, dealing with all the craziness again. But I want to share this with you. I have a teacher friend who called me up earlier a few months ago and says, we're having a Cuba appreciation night here, and can you come and do something? And I says, well, I'm trying to think, what would I do at this thing? She says, can you talk or do whatever, or play a little something, just by myself. So I go to this grammar school, And the students go from 6 to 12 or 13. So they have these appreciation nights. So I come in, I bring my percussion instruments, congas and little shakers and everything. So I decided I'm going to talk about it, but I'm also going to demonstrate a bunch of the rhythms and actually play, and then have them participate and also do a little dancing. This is all by myself. I go in there, and none of these people know who I am. These are all kids and everything. And even the teachers, they're younger than me. They don't know who I am or whatever. I put on a performance that they absolutely loved.
Right, cool.
And that to me did more for my spirit because it was pure. I don't go in there with hit records or hit or anything. I'm not famous or anything like that. They don't know anything of me. And I must say, I enjoyed that more than when I performed at Carnegie Hall. It was like, it showed to me, oh man, I have it, because it's no gimmicks. It was all, they just seemed the raw me. Yeah. If I had a big name, they'll forgive me if I can't entertain them or doing all that. They just love the idea of looking at me or knowing somebody.
Right.
So I went and I performed for these kids and for the teachers, and I did ideas on the spot with the dancing, and I got them involved. And man, they were so into it and so loved it.
That's amazing.
That the performance was one of my greatest performances that nobody will ever see.
Well, yeah, sometimes they are. Those best ones are the ones that no one sees.
And it's just those kids that, even now that my teacher for a time, oh man, they're still talking about that.
There you go.
And all that stuff. So
that's amazing, man.
Right.
And that was your last, most recent gig, then, right?
I did that for free, so it was.
But it's still a gig, as in a performance.
Actually, I did a TV film thing a week ago.
Well, that other one sounds a lot more fulfilling.
No, this was a more professional thing and all that.
Right.
Those kind of things that are just off the cuff, because it was like last minute. I'm trying to get an idea and all that. It's easier if you show up with a band and you play and all that.
Sure.
But by myself, you're just on stage, which is the challenge of being a stand-up. You're by yourself. There's really no safety net.
No, not at all.
So that's what I like. I said, I'm out there in front of all these kids, and there's no safety net. And I did it for no money. I just did it for the love of it, just because she had asked. Yeah. So it was cool. Really, one of my favorite things I've done in my career. And I've done a few things like that throughout, where I've gone to the schools and talked or something, or the union, even SAG once called me a few years back to go speak at the Unified School District. And,
good.
And I would do things, but this was great because it was just me, just perform.
Yeah, unfettered too.
Right.
Well, you've seen a lot. I mean, you've been, writing and performing and in so many different circles for so long. I mean, it's great to see that, like, there's still, even, we all deal with, like, complicated family, the landscape of family is always affects our art, and especially if our art is also our our primary form of survival and income.
Right.
So it's incredible to see, like, just hear your story too, because I've just been a giant fan of you as an individual for a long time, and all the context of it. So yeah, I hope that this next phase will come to you too, and you never know what is right around the corner too, especially if you put yourself in a new place.
Well, the challenge is, you get tired of the struggle, but it's beautiful when you're in the midst of doing the art.
Right.
But when the window of doing the art gets smaller and the struggle gets bigger, that's where the challenge is, to try to keep the faith, keep going, do that thing because it's there. So that's in a way, it's kind of exciting to see where I'm going to do with it. But if I decide not to do anything with it, then I'm actually at peace with that too.
And that's a crucial thing that I don't think most artists have. It takes a while to get to that kind of point of clarity where it's like, you know that you can do something if you want artistically. You can challenge yourself, and like you have in the past, but it's okay if you don't want to go down that road again.
Right. Well, what I find is there are certain things that are more valuable and more important. My journey is not over, and there's more things to do. But in taking care of my family, and I'm still taking care of family members, and I'm also taking care of close friends that are not in position as I am. Even though I'm struggling and everything, I've been fortunate in that have created situations that keeps me going and still enables me to help others.
Well, that's amazing. I hope they know how fortunate they are to have you in their lives too.
But it gets to a point where there was a point when I had a lot of money, just to use that vernacular. But you get put in situations where you're challenged to step up. There are times where either you're going to help somebody or not. If you say you're a family member, if you're a friend, what does that mean? And sometimes you have to step up either financially, but a lot of times physically. Where you got to just be present right there, and that's a struggle. It's easier if you got a ton of money and you just write a check for charity.
Sure.
But when
most of us don't have a ton of money.
Right. When you're not financially set that way, then sometimes you got to do it being present in body and mind. Do those things. So when I did that for my family, and I'm still doing that fulfills me. Even though I complain and I'm the struggle, and I look up in the sky and say, why me? And sometimes I think, God, if I had all that money, I could go to Europe, I could do this, go on some serious dates, something like that. I could do all these things. But now I get a royalty check. I said, I got to save this because maybe in a month or now I get nothing, and I got to use this to help family, friends, or myself, and all that stuff. So every day is, when I get income, I don't celebrate it anymore because that income is save it for a rainy day. And boy, there are some thunderstorms out here. So I gotta truly save it.
Right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come sit with me too.
No. It's fun to share because I've known you actually.
Yeah.
Now this type of stuff also, there was a time where I felt, I gotta keep promoting myself. But I don't always do these things now, even when I get inquiries. Like, when Prince passed away, I had known him and I've had some interactions with him and stuff like that, and I had some friends that work in the media. There was one friend that worked for one of the major networks.
Right.
That wanted to see if I would be interviewed for that. I said no, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, they just want to get a quote.
Yeah, because I knew the guy, but I wasn't his brother or hanging out with him every day, so I didn't want to exploit that situation. And there are other people that want to interview me for this, for that. And
right.
I don't just jump at it. If I have a history, if I know what it's for, whatever. But a lot of times I don't even want to. I want to talk about this.
Yeah, I can understand.
It's difficult. If I'm promoting something, that's different.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not promoting anything. So a lot of times I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's those times when the conversations can really get the most interesting, when there isn't a project to focus on. We really start talking about the bigger picture. But I do want to. You brought it up. I didn't know if I would or even want to ask you. But I just when you mentioned Prince, there is a period of time when like August and you sort of had this kind of Morris Day Prince sort of like there was like a world where it was a similar musicianship going on. And did you guys ever perform together or play together, or was it just kind of cross paths and stuff?
Well, a lot of people will say, have told me, and I've shared, and I've seen Ren, that the whole thing with Morris Day and Jerome was inspired by myself and August.
Nah.
Even their whole look and everything. We were before them.
Sure.
We were before them because, and I don't know how they came about. I met Jerome, nice guy. I never met Morris Day. But my first interaction, or my first experience with Prince before I ever met him, was he was 17 and did I Want to Be Your Lover.
Wow.
If people were research that, his look was a whole minimal look.
Yeah.
Thong or whatever.
Right.
All that was no thing. And at that time, I didn't know anything about Morris Day or his history or anything like that. I didn't know that they had a band together. There's no internet or anything like that stuff. So if you didn't read or see it. So August and I had no knowledge of anything like that.
Right.
And Morris Day came up after us.
Sure.
After the Kid Creole thing. The thing with me and August was basically organic. It wasn't like I said, all right, you're going to be the leading man, I'm going to be the sidekick. It just happened that way. And
you seem like great friends from the old interviews, too. Like, there was a hilarious banter between the two of you guys.
Right. We just had a groove and a rhythm that way. So whatever, there's a tradition of Abbott and Costello, the duo where you have the straight man and the funny guy. And so I guess we followed in that tradition.
Right.
But it was organic. I am the way I am, and he is the handsome leading man. I'm the comedic sidekick. And we created a project that allowed for those theatrics and everything like that. But it wasn't like we took a piece of paper and said, all right, how are we going to do this? You'll do this. And it just, life was that way.
Right.
Well, that was the great thing about the 70s and the 80s, that things grew out of culture, grew out organically. It wasn't Tin Pan Alley, but back in New York and everything, the way you live filtered into your music or into your art, whatever creativity you were doing. So that's how the culture was.
Right.
It wasn't like you had a roadmap or anything. It just, the same thing with Savannah Band. We didn't even know how the music was going to turn out.
Yeah, and the influences are so broad too. You know, it's great to look back at it because there's so much of that big band influence, but it's a very New York City vibe too. There's funk, salsa. I mean, it's all over the place too. So that's why I love when it distills all the way down to just you. It's like this crazy amalgamation of that stuff, but your own like very unique personality is brought into it. So that's why, like, I even earlier in the interview, just my wanting to talk about that, your own music too. It's like it's a great kind of like the core of like your influences. You know?
Yeah, but in my music, part of it is who I am.
Right.
It's my.
Well, of course. Yeah.
It's my. How can I put it? My inefficiencies, my strengths, my weaknesses, all that comes into the music. I can't sit. I don't have the talent or the ability to hit records like, let me write a hit song for Beyonce or this and that. I really have to do things for myself. So, like I said, if I was a great singer, it would be totally different. Because I'm not. My theatrics and my animation comes into the music. I like things big because I'm self-conscious about being 5'3". So I like making things with the big orchestra and the strings and the horns and the bigness and everything like that. And I think it's about that making up for the fact that I rather had wished I was a basketball player, 7'1". So I try to represent that in my music. So that all comes into it. It's part of that whole culture.
Well, hopefully that, I can see that, translating in stand-up too. Like you can.
Well, I probably understand him now. In the acting, I always tend to be over the top, and I don't always feel comfortable bringing it down and trusting myself that I have so much to offer without having to slap you in the face with it.
Right, right.
And the few times I've done acting things when I was able to tone it down and everything, it felt good and it was worked pretty good. So that's one of my challenges as an artist now, to see where I want to go, what I feel comfortable with. And I have fun doing the acting, but I'm not a great actor. And I'm not doing this. I wish I was, but I tried. I go to classes and all this. But I know I just have it deep inside me that I could do really great things. I just have to trust and tap into it. It's just taking a long ass time.
Well, that I guess that's just life for you, man. Well,
Right,
I think you're a great person, and that's what really that's what translates, man. I gotta thank you too for your time today, too, man.
Pleasure,
yeah, I
Peter.
appreciate it so much, man. We had a good one. Yeah.
Sorry if I was talking a lot.
No, that's exactly what I was hoping for. Right
Good luck
there.
with the editing.
Yeah.
man.
Thank you.
I want to thank Coati Mundi for going so far out of his way for doing this interview with me. It was really my pleasure. He was an incredible human being and an amazing musician. I suggest that you try to look up his stuff whenever you get a chance. It's definitely out there. You might have to dig around, but I can assure you it'll be worth the hunt. He's dope. He's amazing. That has been The Houseless. I'm your host and the producer of this show, Peter Agoston. Edited and engineered by CJ Stewart. Opening music by Dame Funk and Keith Ide. You can find us on SoundCloud /TheHouseListPodcast. Follow us on Twitter /TheHouselistPod. And please do subscribe on iTunes. Let me know what you think. If you have any ideas, if you'd like to advertise or anything like that, you can write us at TheHouseListPodcast@gmail.com. Once again, I'm Peter Agoston, and you've been on The House List. I'm going to end this show with a little joint from my man, Coati Mundi. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Until next week, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
I found this earring on the bed.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it belongs to my sister.
Oh, I can't explain it.
Yeah, explain it. Why you ready? Explain all these empty beer cans. This picture of you and Boy George at Wembley. Ew. I mean, do you really want to harm me? Do me a favor. Get those stupid underwear off your head.
Okay, I'll go quick. I won't lie to you, it's true. I've been messing around. Your sister started flirting, coming on strong, and I broke down. I'm in debt to the mob to save my life. I gave up next month's rent.